Previously on Barnyard Builds, we put the back seat out of the 2014 to 2018 Chevy High Country in here. You'll see a couple clips rolling through right now, and then we're going to go ahead and put the front seats in. We're going to take 2 to 3 inches out of the floor humps, plate it with 1/8 inch steel, show you how to wire the power side, and in a future video we'll show you how to do the heated and cooled feature. Stick around and see how this is done. This is a really popular upgrade that a lot of people ask about, so we went ahead and made a video to help everybody out swapping these into the square bodies.
All we're doing is taking the square and marking the area that we're going to cut out so we can try to cut the straightest line possible. We're going to take some painter's tape and trace line with it so it's easier to see on the start paint. We're just going to get the grinder out, cut it out. We're going to get some cardboard and use a little bit of CAD and make us a new pan, and then we're just going to weld it back in, and then we'll be able to put all the little holes on the seat and drill the floor, bolt it, and then we're going to get us some square tubing, put it on the underside of this panel here, and bolt the seat through it. That way, if there was ever an incident or anything, it can't pull out of the floor. And also brace up this welded area that we're going to have cut out. Alright, so we just laid the piece of cardboard down on our hole we cut out. Took the trusty Sharpie, traced it all the way around, and we're just going to cut it maybe 1/4 inch fatter than what we have here. We're going to lay it out on our piece of metal, lay it out, cut it, template it, put a couple tacks on it. We're going to set the seat on it, kind of get an idea, and then we'll go there. From there, we'll go to bolting it down. We just cut a little more out of that piece. We're whacking the hammer down.
Along with putting these seats in, obviously they're power, so that leads to a little bit more work, really. I looked online, we're gonna post the picture in the video, but basically you pull this number 11 wire, this pin 11, which is your ground wire. You pull your power wire right here, which is red with a yellow tracer. And then you pull this red with the black tracer. This red with the black tracer is what really makes these LTZ and up seats a little more complicated to wire. If you don't wire that in, the seat's not gonna work at all. If you've had a newer truck, you know on the side, it's got that memory to save your position so you and your wife can drive it and move your seats where you like it without having to fumble around with them. So you're gonna hook the red with the yellow tracer and the red with the black tracer together. And then you gotta ground your black wire. Once you do that, the seat works, the lumbar, everything like that works. Of course, that's not gonna make your heated seat work or your cooled seat work. We'll do another little video on that once we get these in there and kind of figure out how we're gonna do that. But the goal is, of course, to have the cooled seat and the heated seats working along with all the power functions. And then we're gonna try to figure out how to tie the seat belts into the seat and make them look cool, but that'll be obviously in a little bit different video when we kind of do more interior stuff. But these seats aren't as complicated as it sounds like. There's not a whole lot of information on the internet. I'm just gonna pull my owner's manual for my 2020 Yukon out and see what fuse they recommend for here in the owner's manual, and that's what fuse we'll fuse it with. And we'll hook it to either a bus bar or hook it straight to the battery with a fuse and a circuit breaker, everything it's supposed to have. But these seats aren't real hard. That one should be the same. I pulled all the same wires out, so we should be in luck as far as that goes. We'll splice them all together and probably just have one power run to both of these seats And always remember when you're doing these, before I did any of this or put any power to it, I did pop this back panel off and unplug the airbag, because you don't want that going off in your face, and you don't want it going off and tearing up your seats and everything. All you do is come back here to the back of it. There's 2 clips on the bottom, 2 clips in the middle, and the clips on top, they kind of fall out when you do it. But be careful, because this one I broke these 2 middle ones. I didn't even pull on it that hard. So the other seat I did, I took a screwdriver in here, and about right here is where the tab is, and just push that tab in a little bit to give it some relief so it could come out around the frame. So don't forget to do that, and always unhook the airbag before you power up electric seats. All right, so here we go. On this seat, we're gonna go over how we're gonna mount it. So obviously you got these little tabs that lock into something on the factory truck. We're not gonna have that because I don't wanna have a hole going to the outside of the bed, so we're gonna cut these off. These are the factory pads that it sits on. So we're gonna leave those here, and we're gonna come in and branch off of this. Yeah, we'll be able to do that. Branch off of this and go to those seatbelt holes we were talking about on both sides. And then up here, it clicks into the seat in the factory, clicks into the floorboard in the factory truck with these 2 little prongs like this. So what we're gonna do is cut them off, and then we're gonna get some little tabs, probably like these here, and then place them somewhere about here, weld them onto the floor, and then we'll drill them out with the drill press and then bolt them through to that little bit of tubing that we were gonna put in there on both sides. So it'll go through here, through that tubing, and then to a nut that we'll weld onto the tube to brace everything up. And then, like I was talking about earlier, right here is the power wire for the heated seat part. You can see it says Gentherm on it. And then over here, this is the fan motor for the cooled seat or air conditioned seat, however you want to call it. So we'll find the power wires to it, and then we'll power them up individually and use some switches to get that going and be able to do that. Basically what we're doing is we cut this off. We have this steel plate right here, and it's gonna go just about right in here like this. We used a little bit of CAD, some cardboard assisted design here. Got this set out. It is just about level. It's about as level as you're gonna get it without having the truck on concrete and knowing that the truck is level. So we're good with that. If worst case, we'll put a washer under a corner of the seat or whatever and get it leveled out. What we're gonna do is come in, I'm gonna tack it all around there, and then I'm gonna take the grinder and get everything trimmed to fit. So you can see right here, I got about an index finger knuckle worth of overhang there. So I'm gonna trim that off. And we're gonna get this flush here. Everything's gonna overlap and sit on top of the existing sheet metal to add a little bit of structure and support. Then underneath here, what the seat's gonna actually bolt to along with this plate is we're gonna put this right here. This little square piece is gonna come and sit flush right in here. We're gonna drill through the sheet metal, drill through both sides of the tube, and once we get it all marked and stuff, I'll weld a nut right here, and then we'll run some grade 8 bolts through some tabs we're gonna weld on the seat, through here and to right here. So basically, if I ever was in an accident, this is already gonna be tied into the existing floor structure. You would have to rip this whole tube out of the floor for the seat to move in an accident. And then for the rear, still kind of making up my mind, but I have this, I guess that's 3x1 piece right here. And it's gonna tuck somewhere right in here, possibly, to help add some structure to the floor. And then along with bolting the back seat pieces through this plate, and then possibly even through this, I'm gonna run some outriggers out, and these are the factory seat belt holes here and right here. Obviously the factory seat belt contraption still has to go here, but underneath it we're going to have a nice tab that comes off the back of the seat and goes over here, just like I did in the Blazer, to hold those seats down. We're just trying to make sure we have plenty of strength. These are obviously already reinforced from the factory with some little plates. So that's kind of why I'm toying with the idea of not even putting this in the back. Along with that plate overlapping, we should have plenty of strength. The seat will sit level, the seat won't be too high. Ideally, the headrest is gonna come right here to the seat belt buckle. Maybe a little higher, maybe a little lower, but right in that range. Once we get this seat set in place, we'll come to the back and we're gonna massage some stuff there. We're gonna start welding and then we'll trim it off and finish welding it in and show you the tabs you're gonna put on the seats, show you bolting it in and wiring it up. All right, so obviously we don't have a plasma cutter, which would have made this cut a lot cleaner and I wouldn't have had to do so much bashing. Basically what we did is it was a little fat and I wanted to have that little bit extra strength, so we just scored the edges of the plate and then we just bashed them down and made it lap over completely, like you see right here, and then we just went ahead and welded the whole thing in all the way around. This little section by the transmission was a real pain. I'm not really sure how I would have done it differently, but it was definitely not easy to get the weld in there and weld that little gap up. If I would have sunk it in more and maybe made a step up instead of having it flush, that probably would have made it a little bit easier. Of course, there's 100 different ways to skin a cat. This is just how we did it. I'm sure some other guys might be a little better at fab, could probably come up with another solution for it, but that's how we ended up doing it on both sides. It worked out pretty well for us in the end. All right, so this is the driver's seat right here. You can see I've already come in and cut and ground those little tabs off. That's pretty much what it was right there. These are gonna go right here on the edge of the track. I'm probably not going to rosette weld with this hole here because I don't wanna leave that, I don't wanna weld that piece in if I ever have to take it out. So we're just gonna go around 3 sides there and then we'll drill this like we talked about and mount it. Same sort of deal over here. We got these factory pads we're gonna bolt it to. We're gonna cut these little prong deals off and we're gonna go from there. So that's pretty much how you mount it. It's not really a big deal, not really real hard. It just takes a little bit of time. We're gonna finish welding the floor in here and go from there. I can tell you that we put these seats in probably 10 or 15 times and they are not light. As you can see in that part there, the little peg on the back of the seat is still there. We did do the hot wire deal here just straight to the battery to make it fit. All right, so you can see right here we've got our first foot mocked up. It's gonna go in pretty much just how I wanted it to. It's gonna go right here. We're gonna come in and just run a bead across the bottom. I was debating whether to weld it in, drill it in the truck or out of the truck. Probably just gonna go ahead and drill it in the truck. Just tack it and drill right through right there in the center of it. Put our little bolts in. You can see we've got plenty of clearance below the seat. We'll drop in over here and do the same thing. And then our little square tube that's gonna go on the underside, it'll bolt through there and be like a giant washer on the other side of the truck. Then if you come here to the back, as you can see right here, we're gonna cut these little, whatever they are, stud things off. The seat will sit right on the floor. Then we'll drop through and bolt it there. Then we'll come off of here, probably honestly just off of this outside track, to come right off it and go right to the seatbelt hole. Same on that side over there. And then we'll have everything pretty much finished mocking up. Obviously, we're gonna go back and seam seal every one of these welds on the inside and outside to keep any water from coming in. But overall, we're pretty happy with how it's mocked up. So we'll get everything drilled, get it back in place, and then we'll just repeat the process on this side and finish up our back seats. So we'll be good to go. All right, you gotta be really careful when you're welding these tabs on there. There is a plastic collar on the seat screw that makes it go forwards and backwards. And the first seat wasn't a problem. The second seat, that thing got absolutely smoked. It doesn't affect how the seat works or anything, but it will make you think the seat's on fire. I did end up pouring some water on it to put it out. Just be aware of that when you go to weld these feet on there, and probably take a little more break in between than I did on here. All right, so as everyone knows who's been following us since the beginning, one of the end goals with this truck after we frame swapped it, 12 valve swapped it, manual swapped it, was to seat swap it. So now we've got the High Country seats and we've got them installed. We're gonna go over the whole installation, and then in the end of the video, we'll show you the measurements you're gonna need, the wires you're gonna need to wire it up, and everything like that. And then hopefully later on, once we figure out the heated and cooled side of the seats, we'll show you how to do that as well. But let's hop in and see what it looks like. You can see we've got the High Country seats in here. We've got the console. Went and met with Scott today at Crazy Creations, and he's just gonna build us a console. You can see right here. If we slid it to the dash, I've never seen anyone get these things molded to the dash quite right and make them look good. It doesn't go up far enough for it to come through this hole in the shifter, and obviously it's too far back, and you'll see in a second why it's too far back. So we're gonna get a lid like this, build a custom console that'll still leave a gap where the shifter is and everything. Kind of probably more along the lines like the King Ranch console, but it'll match. We'll probably wrap it in ostrich to match our door panels here. But nonetheless, these are the seats. They're out of a 2014 to 2018 Silverado High Country. These seats are actually in really good shape. Generally speaking, you see these things on Marketplace from anywhere from $2,000 to $3,000. Luckily, the guys over at Marsh Auto Parts in Siler City, they hooked us up. These are only $1,200. We paid $300 for the console. If you want a console that's for sale, $300 you can get it. That was the two fronts in the back, which is a killer deal. There's just small little marks and stuff in them, but as they wear out, we can just get them reskinned. That's the two front power seats. They have lumbar, they have up and down, back, tilt them, you know, do everything you want to that a 2014, 2018 Chevy will have. All right, so right here is how we did our wiring. This is two pieces of 8-gauge wire run directly off the battery, run to this little fuse panel here, or a fuse block. In the fuse block, we've got the two 30-amp fuses, same as Chevrolet used in the trucks. Then we have the grounds for each seat and the hots for each seat. They're going to be right over here on this plug. Once we do the carpet and everything, we'll get this plug hooked up and clean that wiring up. So let's go look at that. All right, as you saw before, you're going to have to take your red and yellow wire, which is your main power, and your red and black tracer wire, and hook them to direct power. That's your memory wire and your regular power wire. Then you just have this big fat ground. Hook all those up. Obviously run them to the block, fuse them. Definitely fuse them because you don't want to burn anything up. Like we already talked about, disconnect the airbag just to be sure. Then that'll give you all your power modes, lumbar, everything that you'd have if you had a 2014 to 2018 High Country instead of a 1974 High Country. All right, we're gonna take a look at this beautiful top-notch weld I got going on right here. We're gonna ignore that. From this weather stripping to the top of our plate is 3 inches. So what it ended up being is we cut 2 inches out of the initial factory floor hump. This is a piece of 1/8-inch plate. Not the greatest weldedly to the floor. And then the back half has a piece of 1x2 square or rectangle tubing holding the back seat. It's bolted in. The front, if you come right here, you'll see the tabs. We just welded tabs to the front of the seat bracket itself. So we welded those, ran them through there and bolted them. They're braced up and they're not going anywhere. Of course, we use Grade 8 hardware for everything on there. So that's pretty much the whole wrap for mounting these seats. Really not that hard, but it does take a lot of time, a little bit of patience. Always measure twice and cut once, and just take your time. It's not really complicated, like I said. You're just gonna have to take your time and kind of grind through it. It took way longer than I thought it was going to. Between the back seat, the two front seats, I would probably say we have around 18 to 20 hours of labor in them, but definitely worth it. You might be sitting there in your recliner wondering like, man, you had some nice bench seats in here. They're comfortable, they're old school. Why would you not keep them? Okay, a couple reasons we didn't keep them. One, I've always wanted these brown High Country seats. That's why I've got those brown seats in the Blazer. Reason number two, if you've ever daily driven a truck, especially one with the bench seat, the middle of your back right here, if you drive any further than an hour, hour and a half, just kills because it cuts you off. There's no shoulder and the rest of your back support. All right, three, if you've ever cornered in a truck with a bench seat, especially when you make it drive on rails on this F250 or F350 frame with the coils and the crossover steering and make it drive like a brand new truck. You go into a corner and then you're like this, leaned over to this side, then you go in another corner and you're leaned over this way because you have no bolsters on a bench seat. You can get those snowed in bench seats. They're super nice. If bench seats are your deal, more power to you. They have bolsters and stuff in them. I don't like those. I wanted captain's chairs. I wanted the flip up back seat. So if you look at these guys right here, and we'll just take a measurement for fun, that's about a 3.5 inch bolster on either side. So you stay nice and snug in your seat when you're quartering, when you're riding off road, you might be off camber, going down some hills or something like that sideways. It keeps you nice and locked in your seat. I like that. Some people might not care in their old truck, but like I said, we daily drive this truck and we daily drive the Blazer. So having some nice bolstered seats for going around corners and, you know, off-road, off-camber situations, stuff like that. Bolsters are a must. That's why we went with these High Countries. They even have these nice bottom bolsters. So you're not getting your underwear in a wad when you're riding around. Nobody likes that.